The first time Thalia set foot on Earth, she was overwhelmed by the symphony of fragrances that greeted her. Her homeworld, Sephora, had been reduced to carefully controlled biospheres after the great atmospheric collapse, with most plant species preserved only in sealed conservation domes. On Earth, life exploded in chaotic, untamed abundance. Trees stretched toward the sky without regulation, flowers burst from cracks in concrete, and humans coexisted with nature in a relationship that was both careless and precious. Thalia's blue skin shimmered slightly in response to the sensory overload, the tiny bioluminescent patterns along her arms and neck pulsing with excitement. As a botanical xenobiologist, she had studied Earth's biodiversity for years, but experiencing it firsthand was entirely different. "You'll get used to it," said Olivia, her human liaison from the International Xenobotanical Institute. "Most Sephorans find our world a bit much at first." Thalia smiled, revealing teeth that had a faint pearl-like luminescence. "It's wonderful," she said, her voice carrying the slight musical lilt common to her species. "I've never felt so surrounded by life." Olivia led her through the Institute's garden, a sprawling complex designed to house visiting alien scientists in an environment that showcased Earth's botanical diversity while providing comfortable accommodations. Thalia's temporary home was a glass-domed structure nestled among a grove of magnolia trees. "Your research equipment arrived yesterday," Olivia said, gesturing to several sealed containers. "The team unloaded everything according to your specifications, but there was one device they weren't sure about. It seemed damaged." Thalia's expression shifted, her skin darkening slightly with concern. "The sonic accelerator? I need that for my growth experiments." "Right, the thing that looks like a weird harp crossed with a microscope." Olivia handed her a tablet. "It's giving off some strange frequencies. Our engineers weren't comfortable trying to fix it. Sephoran technology is still new to us." Thalia bit her lower lip, a habit she'd picked up from human videos during her language training. The sonic accelerator was crucial for her research on adapting Earth plant species to survive in Sephora's damaged ecosystem. Without it, months of preparation would be wasted. "Is there someone who might help? Someone familiar with sound technology, perhaps?" Olivia thought for a moment. "Actually, I might know someone, not from the Institute, but he's good with unusual instruments. He repairs them." "A technician?" Thalia asked hopefully. "Sort of. He's a musician mainly, but he has a workshop where he fixes all kinds of instruments. Some pretty rare ones, too. If anyone could figure out your device without breaking it further, it would be Devon." 2 days later, Thalia stood outside a small shop tucked between a cafe and a bookstore in Rosewood Valley, the town nearest to the Institute. A hand-carved wooden sign above the door read, "Harmonic Solutions, Instrument Repair and Restoration." Taking a deep breath, a gesture that was more psychological than physiological for her species, she pushed open the door. The interior was warm and smelled of wood polish and metal. Instruments of all kinds hung from the walls and ceiling, guitars, violins, strange brass contraptions, and others she couldn't identify. "Be right with you," called a voice from somewhere in the back. Thalia waited, cradling the protective case containing her sonic accelerator. Her fingers tapped nervously against the metal, producing the faintest melodic sequence, another Sephoran trait, their touch naturally creating harmonics on resonant surfaces. A man emerged from behind a beaded curtain, wiping his hands on a cloth. He stopped when he saw her, surprise flickering across his face before being replaced by a warm smile. He was tall, with skin the color of rich earth and hair that curled tightly against his scalp. His eyes were striking, amber flecked with green. "Well, hello," he said, setting the cloth aside. "How can I help you?" For a moment, Thalia felt her vocal cords tighten, a physiological response to unexpected social encounters. Her skin briefly rippled with a wave of lavender embarrassment before settling back to its natural blue. "My name is Thalia," she managed finally. "I'm from Sephora. I have an instrument. Well, not exactly an instrument, but it works on similar principles and it's malfunctioning." The man's smile widened, revealing a slight gap between his front teeth that she found inexplicably charming. "I'm Devon, and you're in luck. Unusual instruments are my specialty." He gestured toward the case she carried. "May I?" Hesitantly, Thalia placed the case on the counter between them and opened it. Inside, nestled in protective foam, was what appeared to be a series of crystalline rods arranged in a complex pattern, connected to a base that contained a small control panel with symbols in the flowing script of her language. Devin whistled softly. Now that's something I haven't seen before. What does it do? It's a sonic growth accelerator, Thalia explained, her confidence returning as she moved into her area of expertise. It produces specific frequencies that stimulate cellular division in plant life. On Sephora, we use them to help restore damaged ecosystems. Like music for plants, Devin said thoughtfully, examining the device without touching it. Thalia blinked in surprise. Yes, exactly like that. Most humans I've explained it to don't make that connection. He shrugged. Everything's music if you listen right. What's wrong with it? It won't calibrate properly. The tones are discordant. They'll harm the plants rather than help them. Devin nodded slowly. Mind if I listen? At Thalia's gesture of permission, he leaned closer to the device. She touched a sequence on the control panel, and the crystalline rods began to vibrate, producing a sound that wasn't quite sound, more like pressure waves that existed at the edge of hearing. Devin closed his eyes, concentrating. There's a fracture, he said after a moment. One of your crystal rods has a hairline crack. It's throwing everything off. Thalia's heart sank. Can it be fixed? These components aren't available on Earth. Maybe, Devin looked up at her, a challenge lighting his eyes. I work with quartz crystal singing bowls sometimes. Similar principle, different execution. I might be able to stabilize the crack temporarily, at least until you can get a replacement. Hope flickered through Thalia, manifesting as tiny pulses of golden light beneath her skin. You would do that. I can try. He smiled again, and something about the expression made her internal light patterns flicker unexpectedly. It might take me a few days. I'll need to understand how it works first. I could show you, Thalia offered impulsively. I mean, I could explain the principles, if that would help. Devin considered this, then nodded. That would be perfect. How about tomorrow? I close the shop at 6, but I usually stay and work on my own projects after. You could come by and we could figure it out together. Thalia felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest, a purely emotional response with no bioluminescent component, which was unusual for her. Tomorrow, she agreed. As she left the shop and stepped back onto the sunlit street, Thalia realized she was looking forward to the next day with an eagerness that had nothing to do with her research. Something about the human with the kind eyes and the gap-toothed smile had resonated with her, like a perfect note struck on an instrument she didn't know she could play. She hadn't come to Earth looking for connections beyond the botanical kind. But perhaps, she thought as her skin shimmered softly in the afternoon light, some forms of cross-species pollination were simply meant to be. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. This proposal is unorthodox, even dangerous. Elder Vashti's deep blue skin darkened with disapproval, the luminescent patterns across her face pulsing with skepticism. Our survival depends on maintaining our traditions, not diluting them through excessive contact with humans. Nick stood before the Lumerian Council, 7 elders seated in a perfect circle within the temporary chamber they had established in the refugee quarters. Though simple by Lumerian standards, no crystalline resonance chambers or stellar observation pools, the room still carried the formal gravity of their lost homeworld. With respect, Elder, Nyx replied, keeping his own luminescence steady and calm. Our survival may depend on adaptation. The terraforming project offers us an opportunity to contribute meaningfully while learning Earth technologies. Elder Telos, his skin a mottled green with age, leaned forward. You propose that our remaining engineers work alongside humans. To what end? To mutual benefit, Nyx said. The humans struggle with energy efficiency in their atmospheric processors. We excel at energy manipulation. If we assist them, we accelerate the terraforming of this planet's uninhabitable regions, potentially creating space for our own permanent settlement. The 7 elders exchanged glances, their skin patterns communicating in the subtle language of light that humans could never fully comprehend. After a moment of silent deliberation, Elder Vashti spoke again. We will permit a trial period. 3 of our engineers, yourself included, may participate in this collaboration. But remember your first loyalty, Nyksterol Vasorin. You represent all that remains of Lumeria. Nyx bowed deeply. I will bring honor to our people. As he left the council chamber, Nix found his childhood friend Zyril waiting outside, her ruby-red skin shimmering with curiosity. "Well," she asked, falling into step beside him, "did they approve your human project?" "Conditionally," Nix replied. "You and Collix will join me." Zyril's patterns flickered with surprise. "Me, I'm a cultural archivist, not an engineer." "Exactly why you should come. This isn't just about technology, Zyril. It's about understanding humans if we're to coexist with them." They passed through the refugee quarter, a section of Terrahome hastily adapted for Lumerian physiology. The lighting had been adjusted to the softer spectrum their eyes preferred, and the air carried trace minerals their bodies required. Despite these accommodations, it still felt temporary, a way station rather than a home. "You've changed, Nix," Zyril observed, "ever since you started visiting that human botanist." Nix's patterns betrayed a flash of emotion before he could suppress it. "Fenna has shown me possibilities I hadn't considered." "Possibilities?" Zyril stopped, turning to face him directly. "Or feelings?" "Don't be absurd," Nix said too quickly. "This is about survival." Zyril's luminescence rippled with skepticism, but she didn't press further. "I'll inform Collix. When do we begin?" "Tomorrow, the atmospheric processing facility at dawn." The processing facility dominated the eastern edge of Terrahome, a massive complex of interconnected structures that pulled in the planet's toxic air, filtered it through a series of chambers, and expelled breathable atmosphere. It was the heart of the terraforming initiative, and when Nix arrived with Zyril and Collix the next morning, he found Fenna waiting for them, along with a half-dozen human technicians. "Welcome," Fenna greeted them with a warmth that made Nix's skin brighten involuntarily. She wore her hair differently today, twisted into an elaborate updo that exposed the elegant line of her neck. "I can't tell you how excited we are about this collaboration." The human technicians looked considerably less enthusiastic, eyeing the Lumerians with expressions ranging from curiosity to poorly concealed suspicion. "These are my colleagues," Nix said formally. "Zyril va Morith, cultural archivist, and Collix va Perrin, quantum harmonic specialist." Collix, whose azure skin was marked with geometric patterns, gave a stiff bow. Though one of their most brilliant minds, he had always been uncomfortable in social situations, even among their own kind. "I have prepared an orientation program," Fenna continued, seemingly unbothered by the tension. "We'll start with a tour of the facility, then break into specialized teams." As they moved through the complex, Nix found himself continually impressed by human ingenuity. What they lacked in the elegant efficiency of Lumerian design, they compensated for with bold innovation and surprising adaptability. "The primary challenge," Fenna explained as they entered the central control room, "is maintaining consistent energy output to the molecular separators. We've tried various solutions, but the power fluctuations keep damaging the more delicate components." Collix, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke. "Your conductors are improperly aligned with the magnetic field." He pointed to a schematic displayed on a large screen. "The resistance creates the fluctuations." One of the human technicians, a stocky man with a perpetual frown, scoffed. "We've checked the alignment a dozen times." "Not with Lumerian eyes," Nix interjected, seeing what Collix had noticed. "We perceive energy wavelengths directly. May I?" He gestured to the control panel. Fenna nodded encouragingly. "Go ahead." Over the next few hours, the three Lumerians worked with the human team, translating their perceptions into terms the humans could understand and implement. By midday, they had developed a modification that promised to increase efficiency by nearly 40%. "This is remarkable," Fenna said, reviewing the projections. "With these improvements, we could accelerate the atmospheric conversion timeline significantly." The stocky technician, Jackson Nix had learned, grudgingly nodded. "If it works." "It will work," Collix said with typical Lumerian certainty. As the day progressed, the initial wariness between the groups began to ease. By the time they broke for a meal, humans and Lumerians were engaged in active discussion, finding common ground in their shared technical challenges. Fenna approached Nix as he stood by a viewport, watching the massive atmospheric filters at work. "I think this is going well," she said softly. "Better than expected," Nix agreed, "though some of your people remain skeptical." "Change takes time." She hesitated, then added, Would you like to see something special after we finish here? Something few humans have seen, let alone Lumerians. Curiosity sparked through Nyx's patterns. What is it? Fenna's smile held secrets. You'll have to trust me. As dusk approached, Fenna led Nyx away from the facility, following a narrow path that wound through stands of experimental earth trees planted as part of the terraforming effort. Zyril and Collix had returned to the refugee quarters, but Nyx had accepted Fenna's mysterious invitation, ignoring the knowing looks Zyril had given him. "Where are we going?" he asked as they crested a small rise. "Patience is a virtue on Earth, too," Fenna teased. They continued in comfortable silence until they reached a small, transparent dome isolated from the others. Unlike the agricultural domes Nyx had seen before, this one contained no obvious crop plants. Instead, flowers of all descriptions filled the space in a riot of colors and forms. "My private project," Fenna explained as she unsealed the entrance. "Come in." Inside, the air was rich with scents, sweet, spicy, earthy, exotic. Nyx's senses, more acute than a human's, were nearly overwhelmed by the olfactory symphony. "These are flowers from Earth?" he asked, moving carefully between the beds of blooms. "From Earth and a dozen other worlds," Fenna said, pride evident in her voice. "I collect and hybridize them. The colony administrators consider it a frivolous use of resources, but I convinced them of its psychological value for the settlers." Nyx knelt beside a cluster of iridescent blue blossoms. "These are not from Earth." "Metrosideros caelestes from Proxima Centauri b," Fenna confirmed. "They absorb ultraviolet radiation and emit visible light at dusk." As if on cue, the blue flowers began to glow softly in the fatting light, reminiscent of the bioluminescence of Nyx's own skin. "They remind me of home," he said quietly. Fenna knelt beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "I thought they might. That's why I brought you here." Their eyes met, and something shifted in the space between them. A recognition, a possibility. "Fenna," Nyx began, uncertain what he meant to say. She reached out slowly, giving him time to withdraw if he wished, and gently touched one of the luminescent patterns on his forearm. "These patterns, do they mean something? They change so often." Nyx's skin brightened beneath her touch. "They express what words sometimes cannot, emotions, intentions, memories." "And now," she asked softly, "what are they saying now?" Nyx looked down at his arm, where the patterns beneath her fingers had shifted to a warm golden hue with traces of rose. Among his people, such colors were unmistakable: attraction, affection, desire. "They speak of confusion," he said instead, "of finding beauty in unexpected places." Fenna smiled, seeming to understand what remained unspoken. "Beauty has a way of adapting, finding new forms in foreign soil." She withdrew her hand reluctantly. "Like these flowers." As night fell completely, the entire dome came alive with bioluminescence, flowers from half a dozen worlds glowing in blues, greens, purples, and golds. The effect was magical, transforming the small space into a galaxy of living stars. "This is why I come here," Fenna said, her face illuminated by the gentle light. "To remember that even in the harshest environments, life finds ways to create beauty." They sat together among the glowing flowers, talking of their worlds: Lumeria's crystal forests and synchronized auroras, Earth's thunderstorms and ocean tides. Nyx found himself sharing memories he had locked away since the evacuation, while Fenna spoke of her childhood in the rainforests of Earth's Ghana before climate shifts had forced her family to relocate. "Have you ever wondered," Fenna asked as the night deepened, "if the universe conspires to bring certain people together across impossible distances?" "My people believe in cosmic resonance," Nyx replied, "that certain energies naturally align across time and space. Like these flowers from different worlds," Fenna mused, "somehow thriving together." When they finally left the dome, the night was well advanced. Nyx walked Fenna to her quarters near the research facility, both of them reluctant for the evening to end. "Thank you," he said as they reached her door, "for showing me your garden." "Thank you for seeing its value," she replied. "Not everyone does." An impulse seized him then, foreign yet irresistible. Slowly, with ritual deliberation, Nyx extended his palm toward her, fingers splayed in the Lumerian gesture of deepest trust. Fenna looked at his hand, then at his face, understanding the significance without being told. She placed her palm against his, their fingers aligning. Where their skin touched, Nyx's luminescent patterns swirled and danced, casting their joined hands in a soft, intimate light. "Good night, Nykstrel Valsoren," Fenna whispered. "Until tomorrow, Fenna Osei," he replied, reluctantly withdrawing his hand. As he made his way back to the refugee quarters, Nyx knew something fundamental had changed, not just between himself and Fenna, but within him. The golden patterns of hope that had begun to appear in his luminescence were now shot through with the unmistakable rose hues of affection. Elder Vashti would not approve. The council had sent him to learn human technology, not to form attachments. Yet as he thought of Fenna among her glowing flowers, of the understanding in her eyes when she touched his luminescent skin, Nyx found he could not regret the connection forming between them. Like the alien blooms in Fenna's garden, something new was taking root in foreign soil, fragile yet persistent, defying all expectations as it reached toward the light. The atmospheric processor exploded at dawn. Nyx felt the shockwave before he heard it, a tremor that rattled through Terrahome's foundations, followed by the deep, resonant boom that echoed across the settlement. Emergency sirens wailed seconds later, their urgent cry all too familiar to his ears. He was running before the second alarm sounded, his long limbs carrying him swiftly toward the massive plume of smoke rising from the eastern quadrant. Around him, humans and Lumerians alike emerged from their quarters, faces turned toward the disaster in shock and fear. Fenna. The thought seized him with terrible clarity. She had mentioned yesterday that she would be working an early shift at the processor facility, calibrating the adjustments their teams had begun implementing. Zyril intercepted him at the edge of the main concourse, her ruby skin pulsing with concern. "Nyx, wait! They're saying the eastern stabilizers failed catastrophically." "Fenna is there," he interrupted, his patterns flaring with distress. Understanding crossed Zyril's face. "Then we go together," she said firmly. They reached the facility to find chaos. The eastern wing had partially collapsed, smoke billowing from ruptured conduits. Emergency teams were already at work, setting up medical stations and organizing rescue efforts. Nyx scanned the gathered survivors desperately, searching for Fenna's familiar face among them. "Nyx," Collix's voice cut through the tumult. The blue-skinned engineer was assisting an injured human technician toward a medic. "Over here." Nyx rushed to him. "Fenna Osa, have you seen her?" Collix's patterns dimmed. She was in the eastern control room when the stabilizers failed. A team is trying to reach that sector now, but the structural integrity is compromised. Without hesitation, Nyx turned toward the damaged structure. Collix caught his arm. "You cannot go in there. The atmospheric seals are broken. Raw planetary air is flooding those chambers." "Then I'll need a breather mask," Nyx said with quiet determination. Zyril stepped forward, "As will I." 10 minutes later, they had joined the human rescue team preparing to enter the damaged section. The team leader, a weather-beaten woman named Petra, eyed them dubiously. "The Lumerian respiratory system is more resilient to toxins than ours," Nyx explained, "and we can perceive energy disruptions that might warn of further structural failures." Petra nodded grudgingly. "Stay with the team, no heroics." They entered through a maintenance corridor, the acrid smell of burning synthetics seeping through their breather masks. The facility's emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow, shadows dancing as they moved deeper into the damaged structure. "Life signs detected ahead," one of the human rescuers announced, consulting a handheld scanner. "2 signatures, 1 faint." The eastern control room was unrecognizable. The ceiling had partially collapsed, panels and wiring hanging like technological entrails. Broken displays sputtered and sparked, and beneath a fallen support beam lay 2 figures, Jackson, the stocky technician who had been skeptical of Lumerian assistance, and Fenna, who appeared to be unconscious. "Help her first," Jackson gasped as the rescue team reached them. "She pushed me out of the way." While the humans worked to stabilize Jackson, Nyx knelt beside Fenna. Her pulse was weak but steady, a gash across her forehead trickling blood. With infinite gentleness, he brushed debris from her face. "Fenna," he whispered, "stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. "Nyx, the stabilizers." "Don't try to talk, we're getting you out." Moving her required delicate coordination. The beam pinning her lower body had to be lifted carefully to avoid further injury or triggering additional collapse. Nix positioned himself at her head, ready to pull her clear the moment the weight was lifted. "On my count," Petra ordered. 3, 2, 1 now. As the team strained against the beam, Nix felt Zyral's hand on his shoulder, a silent offer of strength. With utmost care, he pulled Fenna free, cradling her against his chest as they retreated from the damaged section. Outside, the medical team took over, rushing both injured technicians to the settlement's clinic. Nix followed, his luminescence pulsing with anxiety, until a doctor firmly directed him to the waiting area. "We'll take care of her," the doctor assured him. "She's stable." The hours that followed passed in agonizing slowness. Humans and Lumerians worked side by side to secure the damaged facility and prevent further systems failures that might compromise the settlement's breathable air. Nix alternated between assisting with the emergency repairs and returning to check on Fenna's condition. It was near midnight when he was finally permitted to see her. Fenna lay in a recovery bed, her dark skin contrasting with the white sheets, a healing patch on her forehead and various monitors tracking her vital signs. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than he had ever seen her, yet when she turned her head and saw him, her smile was as warm as ever. "My alien hero," she murmured, voice rough from the toxic fumes she had inhaled. Nix moved to her bedside, his luminescence glowing with relief. "You should not have been there alone." "I wasn't alone. Jackson was with me." She reached for his hand, and he took it without hesitation. "How is he?" "Recovering. He told everyone how you pushed him away from the failing panel." Fenna's smile turned rueful. "Not very smart of me." "Brave," Nix corrected, his patterns shifting to admiration's rich purple. Their fingers intertwined, 4 human digits against his 6 slender ones, a bridge between worlds. Neither spoke for a long moment, content in shared survival and the quiet understanding that had grown between them. "They're saying you were the first one to volunteer for the rescue team," Fenna finally said. Nix's patterns shifted with embarrassment. "I was concerned." "Just concerned." Her eyes held his, seeking deeper truth. In that antiseptic human room, surrounded by the beeping of unfamiliar machines, Nix found his carefully maintained cultural reserve crumbling. The fear of losing her had stripped away pretense, leaving only raw emotion in its wake. "I was terrified," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "The thought of a universe without your smile in it was unbearable." Fenna's eyes glistened. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "It is not romance," Nix said softly. "It is truth." She lifted their joined hands, pressing his palm against her cheek in a gesture that sent his luminescence rippling with golden light. "Same thing, sometimes." The atmospheric processor accident became a turning point for human-Lumerian relations in Terrahome. Working together during the crisis had fostered respect and understanding between the species in ways that formal collaboration never could. The settlement's governing council voted unanimously to expand the joint engineering program, with Nix appointed as official liaison. For Nix and Fenna, the weeks following her recovery deepened their connection. They worked side by side rebuilding the damaged facility, shared meals with colleagues from both species, and spent quiet evenings in Fenna's flower dome, a sanctuary where the boundaries between their worlds seemed to dissolve. Yet as their relationship flourished, so too did opposition from those who viewed such cross-species bonds with suspicion or outright hostility. "You've been spending considerably less time in the Lumerian quarter," Elder Vashti observed one evening, intercepting Nix as he returned from the research facility. "Some say you've forgotten where your true allegiances lie." Nix kept his luminescence neutral, though it required effort. "My allegiance is to our people's future. The work we're doing with the humans serves that purpose." "And the human woman?" Vashti's patterns pulsed with accusation. "Does she serve our future too?" "Fenna Os is a brilliant botanist whose work is vital to terraforming efforts," Nix replied carefully. "You misunderstand me deliberately," Vashti said. "The Council has received concerns about the nature of your relationship with this human. Such entanglements are unprecedented and potentially dangerous." Anger flared through Nix's patterns before he could suppress it. "Dangerous to whom? To our carefully preserved isolation that did nothing to save our world from the Void Eaters." Mind your tone, Vashti warned. You were entrusted with representing Lumerian interests, not abandoning our ways for human fancies. Remember that we still debate the question of permanent settlement here. If humans cannot respect our autonomy and cultural boundaries, perhaps we should seek another world. The threat was clear. Nix bowed stiffly. I will consider your counsel, Elder. Later that night, as he met Fenna at their usual spot near the experimental forest, the weight of Vashti's words hung heavily on him. You're troubled, Fenna noted immediately, reading the sullen tones in his luminescence. Nix took her hands in his, a gesture that had become natural between them. The council questions my priorities. You mean us? Yes. Fenna sighed, leaning her forehead against his chest. I've been getting similar pressure. Director Hannigan called me in yesterday to discuss professional boundaries and diplomatic sensitivities. Perhaps we should be more discreet, Nix suggested, though the idea pained him. Perhaps we should be more honest, Fenna countered, looking up at him with determination. I'm tired of pretending we're just colleagues when we both know it's more than that. His patterns swirled with conflicted emotions, hope, fear, longing. What we feel may not matter to those responsible for our people's futures. Then we make it matter, Fenna said fiercely. We show them that connection between different species isn't a threat, it's the future. They walked in thoughtful silence to the flower dome, their sanctuary. Inside, Fenna had been working on new hybrids, earth roses with bioluminescent properties borrowed from alien flora, creating blooms that glowed with gentle light in the darkness. Beautiful, Nix murmured, admiring her work. They're for you, Fenna said softly. A little piece of Earth and a little piece of the stars, just like us. Something shifted inside Nix then, a barrier dissolving, a certainty crystallizing. Among his people, declarations of profound feeling were rare and sacred, usually reserved for life-mate ceremonies. Yet here, surrounded by Fenna's luminous creations, words long held back finally found voice. I love you, he said in Lumerian, the phrase carrying harmonic overtones that no human language could capture, notes of devotion, protection, and eternal commitment. Though Fenna couldn't understand the words, the raw emotion in his voice and the brilliant patterns sweeping across his skin conveyed his meaning clearly. What did you say? She whispered. I said that my heart recognizes yours across the void between our worlds, Nix translated, taking her face gently between his hands. I said that I love you, Fenna Os. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too, I have for longer than I should admit. Their first kiss was tentative, an exploration of alien territory. Lumerians rarely expressed affection through lip contact, but Nix had observed the human custom and understood its significance. The sensation was strange yet exhilarating. Another bridge crossed, another boundary dissolved. When they finally parted, Nix's entire body glowed with the unmistakable rose-gold luminescence of love, a beacon that would be impossible to hide from human or Lumerian eyes. Well, Fenna said with a shaky laugh, so much for discretion. Let them see, Nix replied, newfound courage in his voice. If our peoples are to build a future together, they must learn that hearts can resonate across species. They left the dome hand in hand, no longer hiding what had grown between them. As expected, the reaction was swift and divided. Some humans and Lumerians expressed support or curious interest. Others demonstrated discomfort or outright disapproval. 3 days later, Nix was summoned before the full Lumerian Council. Your actions have created a diplomatic situation, Elder Telos stated without preamble. The human authorities are concerned about potential biological incompatibilities, cultural misunderstandings, and the precedent this sets for other refugees. And our people, Elder Vashti added, question your judgment and loyalty. Nix stood tall, his luminescence proud and steady. I stand by my choices. My relationship with Fenna Os has only strengthened my commitment to building a future where our peoples can truly understand one another. Noble sentiments, Vashti said coldly, but sentiment does not build civilizations. The Council has decided. You will be reassigned to the Southwestern Settlement Project effective immediately. Distance and duty will cool this inappropriate attachment. The Southwestern Project was the most remote Lumerian initiative, an early exploration of potential territory far from Terrahome and far from Fenna. You cannot separate us simply because our bond challenges your preconceptions, Nyx argued. We can and we will, Telos replied, unless you wish to renounce your position among our people entirely. The choice was brutally clear. Abandon his relationship with Fenna or abandon his people when they needed him most. Either way, his heart would break. That evening, he met Fenna by the edge of the forests they had helped create together. Her expression told him she had received similar pressure from the human authorities. They're transferring me to the orbital platform, she said without greeting. Effective next week. Apparently my specialized skills are urgently needed there. Nyx's luminescence dimmed with sorrow. The Council is sending me to the southwestern territories. They can't do this, Fenna whispered, though they both knew it wasn't true. In the precarious post-disaster environment of a new colony, individual desires were easily sacrificed for perceived stability. We knew there would be resistance, Nyx said gently. Fenna paced, anger and frustration radiating from her. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about the right to choose who we love, about the future we're trying to build. If humans and Lumerians can't accept individual connections between our species, what hope is there for true coexistence? Nyx had no answer that could ease her pain, or his own. Instead, he opened his arms and she stepped into his embrace, holding him tightly as if she could prevent their imminent separation through sheer force of will. What do we do? She asked against his chest. Nyx's luminescence pulsed with determination despite his grief. We prove them wrong. Distance cannot diminish what we feel. If we must be apart to serve our peoples now, then we will be apart, but not forever. Change takes time, as you once told me. I hate being reasonable, Fenna said with a broken laugh. Above them, Terrahome's artificial sky darkened to simulate night, stars appearing one by one, a programmed echo of the true cosmic ocean beyond the settlement's protective dome. Somewhere out there was a future neither of them could yet imagine, where the borders between their worlds might dissolve like morning mist. For now, they had only this moment, this embrace, and the conviction that what had blossomed between them was worth fighting for, even if that fight required sacrifice and patience in equal measure. Look at me, Nyx said softly. When Fenna raised her tear-streaked face, he pressed his forehead to hers in the sacred Lumerian gesture of soul binding, a promise deeper than words, a connection that transcended physical proximity. This is not an ending, he whispered. It is merely an eclipse, a temporary shadow between stars that remain constant. As if in response, his luminescent patterns and hers, the glowing roses she had created for him, pulsed in perfect synchrony, two different forms of light united in the